Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're diving into one of the best self-hosted management solutions there are, Immich. So now it's the perfect time to switch over from Google Photos or OneDrive, and Immich is possibly the best way to go. So in this tutorial, I'll walk you through setting up Immich step by step with Docker Compose, using Traefik as a secure and flexible reverse proxy. And as you know, I've already switched over to NixOS. So this guide will highlight how to configure almost everything declaratively. I'm managing everything remotely using flakes, so this setup will be fully declarative, reproducible, as well as version controlled. If you're running a different distro such as Ubuntu, I got you covered too. I'll show the conventional commands alongside the NixOS workflow as well. So by the end of this video, you'll have a fully deployed Immich instance running smoothly behind HTTPS and accessible via your own custom domain. So before we dive in, there are a few prerequisites. First, you'll need the Docker service enabled within your NixOS config. And then you also need Flake support enabled as well via the Nix setting experimental features. All right, you're ready to dive in? Let's get started. All right, so let's start off with the Docker Compose file. So I'm going to open up my terminal real quick. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. I'm going to SSH into my main server. All right, and then I'm going to go to my directory where I'm hosting Immich. All right, so for the Compose file, this is the official Docker Compose file straight from Immich's website. And honestly, it's not best to let NixOS generate this one for you. This file is pretty complex with a lot of service definitions, volumes, and environment variables that are tightly coupled together. So trying to replicate this declaratively in Nix can get messy really quick. So I just have the official Docker compose file saved under /swarm/image. So within this Docker compose file, 4 services will be created. You have the Immich server, which is the core backend of Immich, handling photo uploads, the metadata processing, API requests, as well as the UI. And then you have the Immich machine learning, which runs the machine learning tasks such as the facial recognition and automatic tagging. And then you also have Redis, Postgres as well. Redis, which acts as the in-memory database for caching and performance improvement, and then Postgres for storing user data, photo metadata, as well as search index. So I do want to highlight a few of the configuration files. So if you look up at the networks, I've set up 2 networks, which will be Traefik and Immich. The Traefik network is shared with my reverse proxy for allowing seamless integration. So because of this, there's no need to expose any of the ports. That's why I have them commented out, as will be accessed in the UI securely behind a custom domain. And then the Immich network just facilitates internal communication between the 4 services, the 4 containers, keeping them isolated from everything else. So you want to make sure that the network name Traefik is externally created first. It's already created in my instance, but if you don't know, the command that you want to run is docker network create. And then specific to your setup, so for me, I'm running Docker Swarm. So I do need to specify that this will be an overlay network as well as it being attachable. So this is because my Traefik instance is actually on a different server within the swarm, and overlay networks let containers communicate securely across multiple hosts. So even though Immich and Traefik will be on separate machines, they can still talk to each other as if they're on the same local network. And then if I go back to the compose file real quick, the Immich network will be created when we run the docker compose up /d command. Also, Immich needs a .env file to define things like where uploads go, database credentials, and other routine settings. So for NixOS users, we can actually generate this file declaratively. I've set up a module that lets you specify the upload location as an option, and then during system activation, it creates the .env file under the /swarm/image directory with all the necessary variables. This keeps everything reproducible and version controlled. There's no need for manual file editing. So if I go to my config directory for my NixOS, I'll show you what that module looked like now. So this is the module. It defines a submodule image.env with a configurable upload location option, and I'll show you how that is configured here momentarily. It defaults to the location /media/image. When enable is set to true, it triggers an activation script that ensures the /swarm/image directory exists first, and then it writes a .env file with the required environment variables for image. So right here, I have them all right here: database location, image version, password, username. It's all the default credentials. There's no need to manually manage your .env files. Your environment is baked right into your NixOS system build. Also, I want my image service to upload to an external hard drive, so I have mounted an external SSD to /media. This is handled declaratively as well within my NixOS config. So the drive is automatically available on boot. No manual booting required. And let me show you what that module looked like. So this right here is the module. It's just annotating the file system will be mounted to the /media. The device is by UUID and the FS type, ext4, and then with the default options. So real quick, let's look at the Traefik configurations. Like in my previous videos, I don't use Traefik labels. Please watch my Traefik video on that setup. Everything is configured within my config.yml file. Also, Traefik's still running via Docker Compose, but I've wrapped it within a NixOS module that sets it up, the systemd service declaratively. And what this module does, and I'll show it to you later, that it pulls, it starts and it stops the stack cleanly. So while it's not a pure Nix package, and I believe you can run Traefik natively on Nix, it still is fully integrated within my system config doing it this way. So for the router config, the role of the host is just image.local.genyhome.net. It specifies my domain name that Traefik should listen for, and then when a request matches this domain, it will direct traffic to my image service. Also, just make sure you update your local DNS records to whatever domain you decide, just to ensure your devices can correctly resolve the domain within your local network. Also, for the middlewares, I'm using primary, which is it's a chain, which I'll show you that down below, and then I'm using CrowdSec as well. And then the service, which is image, which specifies the backend service Traefik should route requests to. And if you scroll down, we're going to look at the services. So for image, it specifies the server's URL, which should be the name of your image server container, which for me is just image server and then the port that it's running on internally. So if you're not running NixOS, just make sure you're in the same directory as your image compose.yaml file, and you'll want to run the docker compose up-d command to start this service. Just make sure you have your .env file in there as well. For my NixOS people, I've created a dedicated module for image, which is modeled after the one I use for Traefik as well. We'll be importing that into my main NixOS configuration, along with the environment module that handles our .env file setup. So let's look at that image module real quick. So I'm still using Docker Compose to run the stack, but I've wrapped it within a Nix module that sets up a systemd service. So it's still fully declarative and reproducible. So it'll create a service called image, which waits for the network and Docker to be ready before starting. And then it will pull the latest image, the latest image it brings the stack up using Docker Compose up, and then it'll shut it down cleanly when the server stops. And I've set the working directory to /image/swarm/image, which is where my compose.yaml file live. And then I've added a restart policy so the service automatically restarts if it fails. And this is also the same one I use for Traefik as well. I just changed the name of the service to Traefik, and then changed the working directory as well. What we're going to do is we're going to import this to our main NixOS configuration for the server that I will be running image on, which will be my Nix03 server, which I'll show you that in a minute. So if you've been following my previous videos, you already know that I'm using flakes to remotely manage my NixOS servers. So once I've added image and my environment module to my main configuration for the server that I'll be hosting image on, which will be Nix03, I'm going to trigger a remote rebuild. So real quick, I want to show you what that looks like. So within my config for my NixOS, I'm going to go to host, and then I'm going to go to Nix03, and then I'm going to look at my configuration.nix file. So within this, I have it broken down by system, core modules, home manager, and then my Docker and Docker Compose modules. So if you see here, I do have my immich.nix imported, as well as my environment.nix file as well. And then if you look down further, as I was talking about, this is specific for my .env file. I have it set to true, and then the upload location I can specify right here, which will be /media/image, which will mount the upload location to the SSD that I have mounted, and that SSD is mounted using the media-mount.nix module right here. So once you have your configuration set up with the modules you need to import, the command that you want to run if you're doing this remotely like I am will be as followed. It will be sudo nixos-rebuild switch, and then flake. You're going to specify Nix03 as the host for the flake, and then the target host should be the IP address of the server 3 in my case. Once I run that, enter in my password, it'll rebuild the system, and then if everything is running right, what I can do is I can log into Nix03 and I can check the system TCTL status for the image servers. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to SSH into my Nix03 server, and then I just want to run a systemctl status image just to see if it's up, and it's enabled and it is running, and you can see some of the logs down here. You can also just run a docker ps just to verify that your image services are up and running. And then what we want to do now is we're just going to verify that the web page is up and running as well. So I'm going to open up a Firefox. Let me close out of this real quick. And I'm going to go to image. And as you can see, it is up and it's up and running. Everything looks good. And that's pretty much a wrap for getting image up and running with Docker Compose on NixOS. From declarative mounts to the compose configs, you've now got a photo management stack that's fast, private, and reproducible. If this helped you out, consider dropping a like or sharing it with someone else diving into self-hosting. If you have questions or want to see more NixOS-based setups, hit the comments. I read them all. So until next time.